we are going to begin our creative journey this term by looking at a genre of art called Cubism. And a lot of you would have heard the name Pablo Picasso before, and he's one of the founding Cubist artists. And so today I've put a link below this video for Google Slides, which has some of the pictures or a couple of Pablo Picasso's paintings, which I'm taking inspiration from. Cubists really like to break up their artwork into shapes. It's quite a geometric form of art in a sense, which also makes it quite abstract as well at times. Cubists really like to show different angles and different sides of the objects and things they're looking at for their artwork by breaking things into shapes. So it's a really interesting form of art, and today we are going to take kind of a basic concept, that idea of breaking things into shapes, and we're going to put that into our own artwork. Today, the artwork I will be doing is inspired kind of by ANZAC Day, which we've just celebrated here in New Zealand. It's a really important day for us, so I'd like to commemorate that by making my artwork some Cubist ANZAC poppies. I've included some poppy pictures of inspiration in my Google Slides below, which you are welcome to view and take inspiration from also. So the things that you'll need today to start our artwork are a piece of paper, a pencil, you might need an eraser or a couple of pieces of paper too, that's okay. You will need a ruler. That's not completely necessary, but yes, can be helpful. You will need something to add colour to your artwork. So today I've chosen to use coloured pencils. I'm also going to show you how to use watercolor paint if you've got some of that at home. You could also use other things like felt pens or any kind of pastel, oil pastel, chalk pastel, whatever you've got at home. See what you would like to use the most and grab those things to get started. So we're going to start today by noticing the shapes of the poppies or flowers on your inspiration picture. If you haven't chosen a picture of poppies, that's totally okay. You can still follow this process. So I started my artwork by noticing what shape my poppies were on my picture of inspiration. So I noticed whether my poppies were really round, or whether they were a bit squashed, whether they had little quirky petals that jutted out and made an interesting shape, whether the petals curved at any points and made it a little bit more interesting as well. I also looked to notice what other things were in the picture. So I've included in mine some little flower buds that I noticed coming out. So I'll hold I pre-prepared mine, hold mine up for you all to see. So you can see here, I've got some little bits of my petals that are poking out in a funny angle. My stems, if you notice my stems aren't all straight. I've made some curved. And I've noticed that about my picture of inspiration. You can see my buds here that I've done, flopping over a little bit. So the other thing I want to just draw a little bit of attention to is just noticing that in my picture, I've made sure my poppies take up a lot of the page, so that I'm not left with lots of space with nothing in it. So a good idea is to make sure whatever you are drawing today takes up as much of your page as you can. We don't want a tiny little poppy in the corner. We want some beautiful big drawings that are going to really fill our page with colour and lots of interest. Cool, so I'll just hold that up a little bit longer. The other thing I'd like to say is it doesn't matter if you've gone over your line 5-10 times and it's looking a little bit hairy. I call them hairy lines. As an artist, often you you do draw with hairy lines because you're trying to work out the right angle and the right shape, and that's all okay. You can erase those afterwards, or you can leave them, and when we start adding the colour, they'll just kind of fade into the background a little bit, and that's okay as well. So once you are happy with your pencil outline, we get to the part where we're going to break our artwork into shapes. Today we're going to do quite a basic version of that. So like I've said before, in Cubist artwork, the Cubists like to have different shapes to show different angles of what they're looking at. Today we're going to do a really basic version of that, just to get ourselves warmed up and thinking a little bit like a Cubist artist. So with your pencil outline, you're going to need your ruler now. I'm going to use a pen for this part. You might like to do yours in pencil first and then go over it with pen, and that's totally okay. What you will notice about what I did, I'm just going to hold it up for you. I added lines that I thought were interesting and added interest into my artwork. So not all of my lines were straight, some went on a diagonal. You're welcome to do curved lines in your one if you would like to. Not all of my lines went all the way through the page. Some of them stopped, some of them were just short. I've made some different types of triangles. Yeah, some really interesting looking shapes through my flowers. So you'll notice that I went right through on top of all of my drawings, and that's okay. Having different shapes within your flower will make them look really interesting. So don't be afraid, get a bit brave and have a go. I want you to think about colour. Now, with my own artwork, I chose colours that were similar to what they were in my picture of inspiration. So I noticed that my poppies were red. So I got a few different shades of red and pink to use. My background for my picture of inspiration was really quite black and white, and I wanted mine to be colour. So I chose different shades of green for the bottom half, or maybe even the bottom 2/3 of my picture, and I chose different shades of blue for the top part to show that there was grass at the bottom and sky at the top. And it's okay to change things like that. You are an artist and you get to decide what your artwork will look like, just like I have with mine, and that's a good thing. So I started by adding colour to my poppies first. So I haven't done all of them just yet, but I have made a wee start, so I'll show you now what I've done. So you can see that I have used different shades of red in my poppy here and pink. So these bottom ones are kind of a darker red. These ones are more of a bright red, and up here, those bits there, they actually are pink, a kind of a reddy pink. So I looked, for this part, I did look at my picture of inspiration, and I thought, where can I see the shadows on my poppies? Where can I see that they look a little bit darker? And where do they look a little bit lighter? And so where they were darker, I did a darker red. And where they were lighter, I did the pinky, and when they were kind of in between both, I did this middle red here. You can see that I've done the same with this bottom one here. And I've got one more poppy to do up here, which I will do in a minute. But what I will talk about as well is I've started doing my background as well. So I've chosen different shades of green. I've done a dark green here, a light green here, and kind of a yellowy green here. I have actually, to get some of my colours, I've mixed them, and it's kind of a bit harder to do with coloured pencils, but you still can. So for this green here, I did yellow, and then I did this green on top of it, and it made a more of a yellowy green, which is a little bit lighter than this, which is what I wanted. For my dark red here, I actually did pencil and smudged it underneath, and then just normal pencil, and then I did this red on top of it, and it made it a little bit darker. So it's okay if you don't have all the shades of coloured pencil, because you can be creative and kind of make it up as you go, and that's good. So just while we are talking about colour, I just want to you to notice a couple of things about my colour that I've done on my work. So where I have broken up my picture into shapes, you'll notice that within my flower shape, so this even just, let's just look at this flower here, with those lines going through it, I have now lots of little shapes within my flower shape. And so my colour, I have kept to those little shapes within my flower shape, if that makes sense. So I have done that little triangle, dark red. I've done that other little triangle-y bit. The other thing I thought I would also mention is that the other thing you might notice about my colour is that it goes shades from kind of a darker or stronger colour around the outside of some of these lines to a lighter colour in the middle. Notice that up here too, some of these. For me, that's just to show a little bit of interest, something interesting, and to kind of show that this is not something that's super flat either. It's 3D, and I think it looks interesting. So if you'd like to do something like that, that might also add interest to your artwork. And the other thing I thought I would say is that with my green here, you'll see I've actually completely gone over my stems, because these stems in my inspiration picture were so small and thin and delicate that I've actually gone over them. I've left here, you can see a little tiny gap on this green bit, and that's where there is a little bud hanging over, so I haven't gone over the bud, but the stems I've all gone over. And what I've done here, I've started, is I've just got my pencil. You could do it with your drawing pencil, or you could do it with a black pencil or brown pencil or felt pen, whatever you prefer to use. And I've just done a really careful line that's going to become my stem for my poppy. The next thing I'm going to show you is, if you've got watercolour paint at home, I'm just going to show you how you might like to use watercolours to do your Cubist poppies instead of using coloured pencil. So I've actually got these tubes, little tubes of colour. Your watercolours might look like little pellets in a container, and those are totally okay as well. These are just the ones I've got at home. If you've got ones like this, you don't need a lot of paint. So one thing all watercolours do need is they need a little bit of water and a paintbrush. So I've just got a yogurt carton which I've reused, washed out of course first and then reused, filled with a little bit of water, might be hard to see there, and I've got a nice little paintbrush here that I'm going to use. I've also got a plate which is just from my cupboard and I'm just going to add a little bit of colour. Oops, this is a bit of a juicy one. A little bit of red. So if you haven't used watercolour before, it can be good to have a little practice on a piece of paper. But if you have, just go right ahead. So I'm going to dive in with some dark red. I'm not getting a lot on my paintbrush, just a little bit. The key with watercolour is that the less water you have, the stronger the colour is going to be. So you can see there. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to just dip my paintbrush in a little bit of that water and I'm going to spread that colour out just a bit. Still keeping within my shape there that I've drawn with my lines. I might get, the real key with watercolour is not to add too much water. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more of my dark colour down the bottom. I might add a little bit along here as well. So go. Cool. I'm going to wash my brush because I'm going to do a different, having a little tissue nearby is sometimes helpful as well to blot your brush on. So I'm going to use a little bit, I'm just going to add a little touch more water to my brush. I'm going to use some of the really bright red now. Just going to water that down just a touch. So I'm going to start with a darker on around the outside and try and make it lighter towards the inside, towards those petals. I'm going to use that same one, just a little bit lighter. I'm really going to water my paint down for this same bright red. I'm going to just water it down just a touch for this one. You can see watercolour makes quite beautiful and quite interesting looking patterns on your paper. I'm going to add just a little bit of extra paint along here to make it a little bit darker, just like I did with my coloured pencils, dark around the edges, because I quite liked how that looked. Cool. And one more dark red for that little guy there, that little part of the flower. I am so excited to see what you guys end up creating from this lesson. I'll show you, so I've done, obviously, as I've been working out what I'm teaching today, I've done a few different versions and I've started a few that I've done with you, this one and this one, but I actually finished one the other day myself when I was practicing, and here's what it looks like. That's my own version. I'm sure you guys are going to create something so amazing and so beautiful, so please, if you do create something, please send me a picture once it's finished of your created artwork, because I would love to share it on my social media pages and love to just see it, and I can also give you some feedback as well if you would like it. Yeah, really excited to see what everyone starts creating. I hope you have enjoyed this lesson, and keep an eye out because there will be more to come. Yeah, have a lovely week everybody. See ya.